Good morning again, everyone in EMS land. Happy EMS week. Trying to get this one out a little bit earlier today. I'm heading out to the woods to do a little bit of hiking with my son William. So up early, and there might be a little more bird sound in the background this morning. I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when you need an ambulance or you go to call 911. I want to start with you need to think about it now and make sure we can find you. So make sure you have your house numbers on your house, you have them on your mailbox, you have them on the curb, and they're clear and they're visible and they're fairly large. If they can find the reflective ones, it's even better, but having your house well marked is really important. Now when you call 911, we really have two ways that we use phones nowadays. Some of us still use the phones that are plugged into the wall. We call those a landline. But if you have that phone that's plugged into the wall, when you pick that up and you dial 911, we generally have your location, your house, and all that. If you call from these fancy things called a cell phone, we can use one of two methods to try to locate you. If you have your GPS turned on, your location services turned on your phone, we can find you pretty closely. If not, we have to use the signal strength from 3 different towers. We call it triangulation, and we can generally get a quarter to a half mile of where you are. But it's best if you know where you are and you can tell us. My wife made this suggestion to me last night. She works in home health and oftentimes has to find people's houses also. She said that a lot of times with GPS, and we do rely on GPS a lot to find your house, it will take you to the wrong location. So if you know that, or if you have tried that with your own location, be it a Garmin or your phone, please let the dispatcher know. And if you can talk to the dispatcher and give them verbal instructions on how to find your house, that's really helpful. Regardless, the dispatcher is going to be asking you some questions, and that's one of them that they're going to ask you. Where are you located? Or what is the location of the emergency? We also want to know what we're going to, so they're going to ask you what's wrong. So those are the two big questions. After they've gotten that information, they're going to ask you some other questions, and they're going to start to provide you some instructions. And I know this is confusing for some people, and they just want the ambulance on the way. So sometimes they get a little upset with the dispatchers, but I want you to realize that most of the time when the dispatcher takes the call and is talking to you, they have somebody else sitting next to them that is dispatching the police, fire, EMS, whoever is needed. So there's usually 2 people working on your call. And it's really important to listen to your dispatcher because they're going to be providing pre-arrival instructions. And this will be able to, or the instructions that they're going to provide are going to be able to provide initial first aid, and it might be starting chest compressions or controlling bleeding or whatever the emergency is, but they're going to provide you some instructions. They're also going to ask you to do a few things that are going to really help us out on the ambulance side of things. One, unlock your front door, turn on your porch light if you can. That helps to identify your house. 2, if you have any animals, dogs or anything, please secure those. Put them in another room, lock them up, whatever needs to be done to secure those. That way they don't interfere with us. And then they're going to ask you to do things like get the patient's medications together and get their medical history together, because we'll want that information. When we get there, we're going to need to know what medicines are on and their medical history. So if you can get that stuff together for us. Even throwing all the medications in a bag and handing it to us when we get there is helpful. If you want to be a little bit more prepared, I would recommend creating a 1-page, 2-page, however many pages it needs to be, list of their medications, how often they take them, and their dosages. And then also any sort of medical conditions, and to their primary physician, because we'll need that information at the emergency department. So they're providing you instructions, and they're paging out typically the fire department and the ambulance service. And the reason we do that is there are typically more stations, fire stations and fire trucks around than there are ambulances. So they can usually get there first and provide first aid and EMT level care until the ambulance crew arrives. So they can get there and stabilize things and start getting things ready for the ambulance crew. And they can get there a little bit faster than the ambulance can. So that's a really good thing to have them. So they'll get there first. So don't be surprised when you call for an ambulance and you see a fire truck pull up. The ambulance is on its way. It's just typically a couple minutes later. When the ambulance crew arrives, we're going to come in, take care of the patient. We're going to ask a bunch of questions. We're going to assess the patient, try to figure out what's wrong with them, and then provide treatment based on what we find is wrong. There's a wide variety of treatment that we do, depending on what is wrong with the patient. Once we provide that initial stabilization and treatment, we'll find a way to move the patient from wherever they are to the ambulance. And if you're well enough, sometimes we'll walk you, especially if there's some stairs, because it's a little bit hairy going up and down stairs sometimes with the patient. It's a little bit nerve-wracking for the patient, and it's hard on us too. Now, if you can't walk, you can't move, or we don't think the condition warrants allowing you to walk, we will carry you. And we have a few different devices to carry people, between the stretcher and backboards and scoop stretchers and totes and all sorts of different things, stair chairs. So we have ways of moving you. And that's another reason to have the fire department there, is a little bit of extra muscle for us. So we have 3 or 4 people being able to carry you, and that can make it a lot safer for everyone involved. Once we get you to the ambulance, there's usually a couple more things that we're going to do in the back of the ambulance before we leave. We're going to get you on our heart monitor, and we're going to be doing some other things, maybe like an IV, stuff that's a little bit easier to do when we're sitting still than it is bouncing down the road. And once we've done all that, we'll take you to the hospital. Now, whatever hospital we go to is up to you. If you are awake and alert, and you can tell us, or I should say the patient, if the patient can tell us where they want to go, that's where we'll take them. It's always your choice. We can't take you where you don't want to go, but that would be kidnapping. So we always try to take you there. Now, if you are unable to answer, you're not awake, you're unconscious, something's happening, then we will take you, or take the patient, to the closest appropriate facility. Now, some hospitals in some areas are better suited for certain conditions. Maybe there's one that has everything it needs for somebody having a heart attack, or maybe there's another hospital that's better for injuries and trauma. And we may make a suggestion on what hospital to go to. But if you absolutely want to go to a certain hospital, we will take you there. No problems with that. We'll go to whatever hospital, as long as it's within, I think they say something like normal operational locations. So if you want us to take us to a hospital in like New York City, that isn't going to happen. We can't go that far. But we'll take you to wherever you want to go. So again, make sure your house is well marked. When you call 911, realize there's 2 people working on your calls, and they're going to give you some instructions that are really critical to help to take care of the person. Get their medications and the medical history together. Secure any animals. Wait for the ambulance crew to arrive. If you can have somebody outside waving for us to let us know, that's good. Realize there's probably going to be a fire truck that will get there first. When the ambulance crew arrives, we're going to provide some assessment and treatment on scene, and then we'll move you to the ambulance. A little more treatment in the ambulance, and then we go to the hospital that the patient wants to go to. Hope you're having a great EMS week. Looking forward to doing another one of these tomorrow. If you have any ideas or suggestions, please comment below. If you're looking at this on YouTube, you're welcome to like and subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you. Happy EMS week.